Hello and welcome to another episode of Crossover Deep Dive. Today I have as my guest, Skylar Peterson. Thank you, Skylar, for being here.
I thank you.
I have heard your beautiful voice. You have this just low, rich voice. So I'm looking forward to hear more about your original music and your story. So can we go back to the beginning for you, Skylar? When did it all begin? Was it a child or?
Yeah, so for me, it's a little bit of an interesting story because, I come from a musical household as my mother is a, professional singer and was voice professor. So there was always an understanding of the arts ever since I was young. But for me, I never started getting into music or the arts really until I was in sixth grade. And at that point, I wasn't even singing yet. I started as a saxophonist. I
Okay.
joined a middle school band. And that was kind of my trajectory throughout from that point on. I was always a saxophonist. I never really sang at all. And so I went through middle school and high school doing jazz band, marching band, symphonic band, all the bands that you could be in, playing, saxophone, clarinet, flute, doing it all. That was my thing in the arts. And at the time, career-wise, I was also pursuing pre-law through my school. So I was on track,
Okay.
law school, lawyer, and then, playing sax on the side and enjoying that, especially more so jazz. And when I was going into my junior year of high school, I, all of a sudden this passion for singing and musical theater kind of stirred up within me because my school at the time had a very prominent and large and well-funded theater program. So that was kind of like the crown jewel of the school, of the conservatory that I was at. And this interest really piqued in me when I heard the music for the Phantom of the Opera the first time.
Okay.
And
Yep.
so when I first started listening to that, I was like, this is the type of music that I really love because I love that dramatic orchestral music, especially the minor keys. I love all of that more dark type. And when I listened to that, that got me on a rabbit hole of then discovering the phenomenal voice of Norm Lewis, who he has become my favorite singer, one of the people I've been most inspired by vocally. And after, discovering that show, discovering him, this interest in wanting to sing and do that as a career really, came into fruition that wasn't quite there before. And so I auditioned for my school's musical of Les Mis for Javert. And I got that role and what the director at the time wanted is to just put me in the rest of the shows for that year to like build me up for Les Mis at the end of the year. So I just kind of got thrown in head first into the musical theater world. And within just my last 2 years of high school, I ended up doing 7 or 8 shows.
Wow.
So I really when I got that bug for it, I went straight in and, committed to it all the way. And when it came time for, graduating and you picking college and what you were going to major in and where you were going to go, I was trying to figure out the decision of, do I want to do music? Do I want to do musical theater? Am I going to pursue an academic career? Am I going to try to do a double major? And that was something that I was really having to spend a lot of time thinking about because I didn't know if I was even, willing or interested in pursuing this as a career. And as time went on and more discussion was had about the situation, we eventually as a family decided that, for me, what would fit best right now is probably just to look at programs as for voice programs and as a voice major. Since for me, that was what I loved so much as being a musician first, it was always more so about the music to me. Um, so I decided that I was going to go to school for voice. And the school that I decided upon was Belmont University. And upon arriving there to, phenomenal teacher, I have Dr. Mark Watley as my vocal instructor. And he's a phenomenal teacher, studied under some of the greats of the American vocal teachings, like Dr. Stephen King. So having someone like that, help guide you through your voice, all within the same time of me discovering what this classical crossover genre is, that was something that I never knew exactly what it was, but it was something that since I started singing kind of stood out to me because vocally I
Yes.
feel more natural singing this almost more classical way than what a lot of people would do, this more commercial pop, folk, that type of music. That never
Well,
felt right.
oh,
Yes.
sorry, Skylar. Let me ask you. So you said you're starting in theater. Obviously, Javert, I think, is a very
Yes.
like legit role. So were the early roles, did they kind of lead you in that same very open
Yes.
vocal place as well?
For sure. Because that was what first got me into singing, was that type of singing. So that was always what I was attracted to from the beginning, especially being more of that bass
Yes.
baritone. That was naturally where I felt my voice lent itself to. And it was something that I loved the sound of it, and it felt very natural to me. So that was definitely something that I really dug into early on, especially within teaching, focusing more on that, golden age, legit musical theater and classical
Yes.
music.
Well, we'll get to your songs, but you do have quite like a bit of that crooner sound
Yes.
to you, which I love. So it sounds like, in a way, the way you started was great because you didn't have like some baggage of you. It's, started maybe before your voice changed, all of that. You came in, you ready, knew how to read music, you had a good
Mhm.
sense of tone, and now you're just able to kind of apply it to that.
Yes.
So are you currently studying, or did you finish with that degree?
Yes, I am currently studying at Belmont. I'm currently under the instruction of my voice teacher. But going off the crooning thing, actually, while I was starting singing and starting lessons in the more musical theater realm, I was also starting to take some lessons within my senior year with a jazz singer that lived in the
Okay.
area where I was from. And what I worked on with her was specifically getting me to understand that more commercial side of singing, because that was not as natural to me as the classical, more, operatic or golden age type of singing. So with her, the goal was to do those great American songbook songs, those standards, those classics, and we would pick one and then I would record them in their studio. So through that whole process of doing a year of that, she really was able to teach me the art of the simplicity of just the storytelling and the choosing when you want to do the straight tone or the vibrato, how you want to phrase things, how you want to back phrase things, and how important it is to really focus on the words of the music, and the word painting, all of that, while also understanding the nuance of the recording studio and how much room there is to play and how much give there is when you're in the studio, as opposed to then what you can do in a live performance. So having that training as early on as I did, alongside my, more classical foundational training, was something that I think really helped me in not just aiming in one direction and having to play catch up later, but I was training both tracks parallel during the time that I was, learning to sing and was training.
That's one of the things I noticed when I listen to you is the way that you sing. It's often very speech like. It's not like we're being like sung at, it's
Yeah.
like you're really telling us a story. So you came into it, you already have this going. What did classical crossover? When did that mean something to you? Because I know most of us were like, oh wait, this is a genre. It's kind of a new discovery.
Yes. So ironically, for me, when I found out like what this was and that there's a name to this sound, was we were at home and my dad was just flipping through the channels and it flipped onto PBS and Il Volo was singing. And at
Okay.
first we were like, okay, we don't, who are these guys? So we're just watching and just we were entertained by it. And as we listened, we were like, wow, they're very good. I mean, this is great music. And from that moment, I then did a deep dive into that group and then people like similar of that, like Josh Grobe and Andrea Bocelli. And after, doing my research, so to say, and listening and paying attention to what this sound is, I was able to understand, okay, so this is called classical crossover after seeing, the headlines and then the genre titles for their music. I was like, so this is what this genre is called. And, these are the artists who are under it. So this is that sound that I feel that feels, something that is more of how I want to sing and how I want to communicate myself artistically, because I never quite felt completely in tune with the musical theater thing, because I still wanted to have that leeway with how I sang and to sing as me, as opposed to just doing whatever is just right for the character, which I appreciate and understand how to do and understand the importance of doing that in that place. But for me, what I wanted to do was, that merge of being able to use that classical training with that crooning training, with that musical theater acting skill, and that training of all of it together. And I found that classical crossover was the way for me to be able to use those skills and be able to communicate effectively with the tools that I have.
It was the most Skylar of everything.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So tell us now, okay, you've kind of got your style, you've discovered this great style, you have your voice training, and then you met a wonderful producer.
Yes.
So how did that come about that you met? His name is Oliver Bassil?
Yes, Olivier Bassil.
Oh,
Yes.
I butchered it. Please
No,
tell us
you're
about that story.
Yes, so actually how that came about was since I live in Nashville and I'm attending Belmont University, I heard that David Foster and Catherine McPhee Foster, were going to be in town at the Nashville Schermerhorn. And so, first thought was, okay, we need to get tickets. So my family and we decided to get some tickets to go see that, because knowing David Foster, he's really the person who has helped orchestrate this genre of classical crossover, being one of the ones that really helped Andrea Bocelli discover Josh Groban and help with a lot of groups that came up under this genre, including his team helping with other groups. So I was like, okay, this is the man I need to see. And, this is someone I would love to get connected to. And so we got tickets to go see the concert. And after the concert, we were able to meet David and Catherine after the concert. And when I was talking to David, I, introduced myself, told him, what I'm doing. At the time I was 19, so it was about like 2 years ago. I'm a 19-year-old classical crossover singer trying to get into this industry. I had just released my first single at the time, Charade. And, I was just trying to tell him about myself a little bit. And he asked me for my music and for my information and gave it to his manager. And about a month or two after that, I noticed a DM on my music page on my Instagram from a producer, Olivier Bassil. And at the time I was like, okay, so I just seeing a random DM from a producer is interested. I'm like, okay, what exactly is this? Who is this? And then as I did my research, I found out that he was the right-hand man of David Foster, Olivier Bassil is, and, scheduled a Zoom with him to, to talk about what he found interesting in me, what he wanted to do, what he wanted to accomplish together. And from that moment, we were like, okay, we want to bring this new edge and this new voice of the new generation to this genre, to classical crossover. And, with me being 20 years old and then having more of an understanding what this new generation is, and taking the pieces of that I like, along with the more classic understanding of what music was and what the classical crossover genre is, fusing those together. And then also, with my voice being more of that bass-baritone, to provide a unique spin on this genre that hasn't really been done before. And so that was our goal. And I went out in May to LA of this past year, and we recorded 3 original new songs. We wrote 3 within about 9 days. We wrote 3 original songs and recorded them. And, just released all 3 of them. And so now I'm excited for the world to hear what that project is, and that there's lots more to come from that. And so far, the first 2 songs from that series that we did of those 3 original songs have each amassed over 120,000 streams each. So, there's been a lot of success behind it, and, looking forward to the future, and especially with this new release of Masquerade.
That is just kind of like one of those old time stories you hear about being discovered. That's awesome, Skylar. So tell us a little bit. So you started working with him, and then the first that came out was Mirage. Is that correct?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about Mirage. And obviously it's been received so well, but what are some of the things you love about that piece?
Yes. So with that piece, some of the inspirations for that song at the very beginning was I knew I wanted that more international flair piece that is so synonymous with classical crossover. And as we all know, in classical crossover, it is really a wide yet specific niche range. You know, there are a lot of things that can be classical crossover, but it has to be done in a certain way for it to really be that. And we knew we wanted this international flair, something more like, think about like the old bolero classics, like a Bésame Mucho or Quizás, something like that, with, you know, that classical Spanish guitar, and that more passionate feeling and that romantic, you know, sensation of the song, like those, you know, classic boleros. And, you know, with my producer and the team, as we were coming up with ideas, musically, we came across this thing of what we did, where it's kind of a Latin and Middle Eastern influence of both.
Mhm.
So it's a hybrid almost. And it's not quite like anything that I've really heard before in this genre, since it's kind of that mix between those things. It's not
Yeah.
just Latin or just, you know, one of those things. It's a kind of a mix. And even our the drummer for that piece was in Ghana. So it has, you know, some of that, the djembe African rhythmic pulse, along with, you know, some of those
Fantastic.
Middle Eastern, you know, harmonics, along with that Latin feel, that Spanish guitar. So we kind of blended all those things together. And, you know, I had the idea for the song title Mirage. And so we were able to all, you know, co-write on it and put it together with that vision for something that, you know, could bring people somewhere, you know, could put them in the, you know, that desert or that beachy tropical feel within a song, while also, you know, feeling the meaning of the story behind it, of, you know, seeing a love or seeing something there, but it not really being real, or reciprocated. And so, you know, all of those components mixed together was something that I thought would be a great first release, to really like signify, this is my first original piece. This is what Skylar Peterson sounds like.
And I have to say, I did not realize you were this young. Your voice is so mature, Skylar. And it sounds like you were writing on these pieces as well. What was that like, going in with these established writers, being this young and having this experience?
Yes. So for me, I had never done songwriting before. I had done some, you know, messing around, some composition, some arranging, more of that composer background, you know, and, you know, more instrumental. And for me, going into this process, I had really, over the past couple of years, really have done my research on this genre. Who makes this genre? What makes this genre what it is? What does it sound like? How can it sound in so many different ways yet still be the same thing within this genre? So really having a good understanding of what it takes to mean classical crossover and the boundaries that can be pushed under that. And so when I went into those rooms, you know, I had a strong vision for what I wanted and for what I knew it had to be, while still playing around with the ideas of the other creatives in the room. And so going in, I had a strong conviction of what this sound needed to be and what it needed. And so I tried to guide it from that understanding, you know, lyrically, melodically, and especially musically as well. You know, being a musician first, that was also something that's a really big part of the expression for me, is how the music sounds along, even without the vocal. So taking all those things and blending them together, and trying to make sure that the product really is something that is expressive and new and fresh, but is still of this lane. And, you know, I had a great time working with the team, working with Olivier, Bassil, Bellaro, his wife, and with Vanessa Campagna. It was a great team to work with. And it was people of a lot of different backgrounds. Because with my producer, Olivier Bassil, being the right-hand man of David Foster for over a decade, he's worked with everybody from Andrea Bocelli to Josh Groban to Michael Bublé, Barbara Streisand, all of those people. While on his own, he's worked with a lot of people more so in the rap, R&B, pop lanes. And his wife being a pop R&B artist, and Vanessa Campagna being more of that pop contemporary Christian artist. So it was really a blending of so many musical understandings that allowed it to be unlike other music that you would necessarily hear in this genre, because it's just people from so many different parts of the industry. And I think that was the beauty of it.
I'm going to put you on the spot here just a little bit because I'm a bit older than you. So I remember when I was growing up, they didn't quite have, like, again, people kind of didn't know what classical crossover was. So now it has a name. And I think, you know, we've tried to define it obviously as a magazine that focuses on this niche. But how would you, if someone just asked you, like your friend, would you say, like in 2 sentences, what is classical crossover?
I think classical crossover is, you know, that mix of taking that traditional, strong storytelling and musically driven work, but then making it for the contemporary masses, essentially, in a way that they can feel is more relevant to them and speaks to them more so in the modern day, as opposed to what, you know, what a lot of contemporary people would think of classical music, which we know, you know, can communicate to all. But I would think that's probably what I would say.
Yeah, and maybe it lends itself to venues. Maybe would you agree that it's like people can hear it, whereas in opera house they might feel a little intimidated at first to just
Yes.
go.
Yes, it's readily available to them, and it's readily available for them to understand.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about Charade. That was your next single, I believe.
That was my original, my first
Oh,
single that I released before my original works.
okay. So what came after Mirage then?
So after Mirage was the second original single, "The Feel of You."
Feel of You. Okay.
Yes, and with that song, you know, we wanted to, while we were making these 3 songs, these 3 original songs, I wanted to, you know, hit on different spots within this genre. So we touched on the international flair with Mirage, and then with "The Feel of You," we wanted more of that almost power pop ballad type of thing, much more commercial than what the other songs would be, to kind of push the boundaries of that. So it's something that's more relatable to, you know, the newer generation, something that might be more enticing to them potentially. And with this one, we wanted more of that, you know, heartbreak, you know,
Yes.
ballad, more simplistic in the means of the music and the accompaniment. So this one, it's just a lot of piano, and then during, you know, the big chorus parts, there's a little bit more, you know, some brass and some other instruments. But this one, we tried to keep more simple throughout. And you know, the meaning of this one is about a past relationship that has, you know, gone on, didn't work out, but then still feeling, you know, this sense of connection with that person, you know, even after they're gone, you know, but in trying to hold on to what could be left as it fades away, as the chorus goes. So with this one, we really wanted to hit on that mark of the more commercial, um, pop ballad type of song that's within this genre.
Very relatable theme to everyone, but I think it's like your voice, because it has that richness, is what keeps tying us back to that old world singing and all of that. So today, before our interview, I went on to listen again to your tracks, and I saw there was a new song that had dropped, Masquerade. So let's talk about that. Out today. That's exciting.
Yes, this one is definitely more of like the love song to, you know, what started it all for me with, you know, like the Phantom of the Opera, Les Mis, those classic musical theater shows, and then even, you know, the classic operatic tradition. So having that more orchestral song, you know, being more dramatic, all about the drama, high level, very intense, you know, with that strong orchestra, you know, the minor key, all that in a
Yep.
place. That's something that will, for me, has always been my favorite. So getting to do something like that is truly like a passion project, essentially. Getting to put together a song like that, that, you know, can have a, you know, a hint for the new generation, like a fresh take on it, but being a true homage to, you know, the things like Phantom from the past. And I enjoyed singing that one, getting to allow myself to have more of that, you know, classical type of sound on this one, as I felt that's what it lent itself to. And I think it really it rounded out what those three songs were trying to accomplish by, hitting different points within this genre. And I think that that one will be one that, the people of the theater, classical musicians, opera singers, people from that side are going to, I think, really enjoy this one, especially.
Now, in your website, it said that your producer refers to you as a one-take wonder,
Mhm.
which I thought is quite interesting because nowadays there are two approaches. That one take is very synonymous with Frank Sinatra, right? He came
Yes.
in, that's it, he did it.
Mhm.
Whereas now I was watching an interview with Billie Eilish and David
Mhm.
Letterman yesterday, and
Yeah.
she was showing how it was 87 takes. And I want to make it clear because I think sometimes when people hear that, they go, oh, well, she can't sing. But
Mhm.
it's a different approach to, I think it's more, perfection, more on a different sound.
Mhm.
But it's so old world, that one take. So I wanted to, see how, for you in the studio, is that something that just happened, or, because it captures a different mood, right? When you do it
Yes.
in
Yes. Well, I
two or
mean,
three takes.
exactly. Well, for me, how I started when I started training in the studio with, with Jill Schweitzer was her name, who was the jazz singer who I studied with when I was back in South Florida. With her, how we would record a song, we would practice the song, workshop the song, have an original arrangement, and then when it came time for the studio day, we would do, maybe 2 to 4 takes. Just we would
Yeah.
do the whole song all the way through, and then you would do that about 2 to 4 times, and then from there you might comp a little bit. But for me, just being able to be in the song and be
Yes.
in the storytelling and be that connected to it the whole time through is, I think, for me and for what this genre calls for, it gives you more options that are more emotive and better for the storytelling, as opposed to just, doing line at a time, or doing a bunch of different things that are, taken out of context from each other. Because I think that there is a sensation there that the listener feels when they know that you're actively in the song and you're actively
Mm.
singing through what you're saying and what you're emoting. And for me, one of my biggest inspirations is Barbara Streisand. And so someone like that, who that's how she does it in the studio. She's going to do her few takes, and then that's what she does.
Yeah.
And someone like that, who, what I love so much about Barbara is her storytelling, but then also giving something to every little thing that she sings. Whether it be some sort of tonal quality that's different, some tapering, how she's going to do vibrato on this note, how she's going to do a diphthong on this note, just all the specifics that are in everything. That is something that I learned to love really early on. And for me, whenever I'm in the studio, that's what I'm thinking about, is what can I give to everything that I'm doing? To not just let something passively go by, but I want to give something to every specific thing so that it can accomplish something far greater together.
Now, I just want to ask you, because you are so young and you're still in school, but you're also pursuing this at the same
Yeah.
time. What is that like? Because I imagine it might be quite helpful actually to be able to go back to your teacher. So what's that like?
Yes, so actually, currently for this semester, what I'm doing is I'm taking this semester off
Okay,
due to a lot of the momentum that I've been gaining to really focus on this career.
got it.
Still training with my teacher. So I'm kind of getting the best of both worlds right now. So I'm still actively getting that training while being able to pursue this career with, the skills that I've been taught and what I've learned from school. So I think it kind of has worked out for a great, situation to have, you're freshly coming off the heels of a lot of the things that you've learned
Yeah.
um, for this industry and to pursue life as a musician, and go right at it immediately after doing that, while still being able to continue that constant training that we know is so necessary.
Yes, the real world piece of it. I think sometimes
Yes.
we don't get when you're doing it just year
Mhm.
after year. So now
Exactly.
you'll be able to have a little bit of both. So, Skylar, I'm excited to see what happens for you and curious what's next. Are you going to perform live? You're going to do an
Yes.
album?
Yes. So I actually just recently, I think about a week or two ago, was just in Palm Beach performing for Ballet Palm Beach's annual gala, A Night in Monte Carlo.
Fantastic.
And that was a great, venue to get to perform at, and a great reason to get to perform. And ironically, I found out after the event that Princess Charlene of Monaco was there.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, well, that's a pleasant surprise to have. But for there, I got to really, dive deep into what that international sound is within classical crossover, especially with the theme of the Gala being Monte Carlo. So I got to dig into, the French music, the Italian music, the Spanish music, all of it, all the things that I love, like Caruso or Bésame Mucho or Y Mal Amor. I got to dive into all of that. And that's something that I really love, especially being someone who I've always loved languages and, linguistics. So for me, I love always getting to sing in a different language and understanding how that works and the benefits of using each language, what the strengths are each language has when singing. And this has always been something I've been interested in. I studied Mandarin for 3 years in high school, and I've studied Italian for about 3 years now. So just for me, I love getting to always add that in to whenever I perform. But currently I am actively, in the process of booking throughout the year, and am looking for a booking agent as of right now. And then in regards to recording, I was actually supposed to be in LA this past week, to record 3 new original songs, but due to all the fires, we've
Of
had to
course, yeah.
postpone it. Yes. But yeah, we're looking at, getting some more original works along with covers, new retellings on some classic covers. So all of it's in the works right now, and I'm hopeful for great products not too far away.
Well, awesome. Again, thank you for being here, and we look forward to having you back again in the future.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's a joy to get to do this, especially to be a part of a community of, such a niche genre, but something that we all love, and we know that the world will love when they hear it.
Absolutely. Well,
Yes.
everyone, will have Skylar's information on the screen, and we hope you join us next time back for the crossover deep dive.
Thank you so much.